I am Sean Blanda, Director of Content at Crossbeam, and I am joined by Olivia Ramirez.
Hi, I'm here too.
We're going to talk about what is tech ecosystem maturity. That was one of the titles of this webinar. We're going to set the stage. Then we're going to get to 7 ways to co-sell like a Supernode based on about a year and a half of research that our team has been doing, talking to people with large and impressive ecosystems. We'll talk about how to level up your own co-selling motions. And then if we have time, we'll do Q&A. We're trying to keep this to 30 minutes. So let's set the stage here. This webinar is mostly geared to people with tech ecosystems. We talk about co-selling and co-selling like a Supernode. We're talking mostly to those of you with tech and integration ecosystems. Now, that doesn't mean that you channel folk won't get something from this, but a lot of the language we use, a lot of the examples we use, a lot of the research we'll be surfacing is from tech ecosystems. You're probably wondering, what is maturity? I keep hearing you guys say this maturity word. We're not referring to your never-ending quest to get your teenage son to make his bed. What we're talking about is tech ecosystem maturity, which is basically how advanced and established your tech and integration ecosystem and the workflows to build that ecosystem are. One of the things we heard all the time, and we hear all the time here at Crossbeam, is some version of, I wish there was a roadmap, I wish there was a guide, I wish I had next steps. Us creating this maturity framework is our attempt to make that guide. So what we've done is, depending on one's maturity level, we've assigned them one of 4 names. So all the way from level 1, explorer, you're just figuring things out, you're exploring, all the way up to level 4, which is Supernode, which means partnerships are just essential to every aspect of the business. This webinar is us analyzing and sharing some of the co-selling learnings we've received from people who rank in that level 4 category.
So in our conversations with hundreds of people in the industry, we've noticed what are the things that contribute to someone's tech ecosystem and what are the things that they can level up to improve their maturity. So we've come up with more than 30 criteria that contribute to tech ecosystem maturity. These include everything from co-selling, which we're talking about now, your co-marketing workflows, your API documentation, your better together story, how you message your integration, and the processes around communicating that value.
Okay, so we talked about the 4 levels and we talked about the many criteria. We're going to pull out one of those criteria, which is co-selling. And this, in general, is how people co-sell based on their maturity level. So I'd love for you to take a look at this and in the chat, say which one you most identify with: Explorer, Producer, Connector, Supernode. So Explorer, your sales team is non-cooperative regardless of partner status. They don't play ball. All the way up to Supernode, which you have automated processes instilled and mandated across the majority of the sales organization. We did a lot of walkthroughs of the maturity diagnostic with this. And whenever I got to this slide, people would go, "Ooh, this is a tough one." So if you just reacted, "Ooh, this is a tough one," you're not alone. And if you're wondering what people tend to answer, this is what we're looking at. Around 3% co-sell like an Explorer, saying their AEs are not non-cooperative, up to 13% say they have a co-selling like a Supernode status. So if you are part of the, let me do my math here, 87% who's not a Supernode, this presentation, this webinar is for you. We're going to teach you as best we can how to level up and move through these to get to that Supernode status.
We've heard about so many great processes, frameworks, tactics that Supernodes and others who are co-selling like a Supernode are using, but it's not really a copy paste kind of thing. So we can share one Supernode story about how they do something, but what works for one company won't work for the next. What works for one partner program won't work well for the next necessarily. So we kind of wanted to take the best of what's on our blog and what's been in our conversations with people and make kind of a Frankensteinian Supernode, so to speak. So the slides that follow will go over the 7 things that a hypothetical Supernode should focus on and what are some of those tactics that fit into those things.
So again, there is no one company who does all 7 of these things. That's the point, right? We're kind of pulling the best from the best to create this manufactured Supernode and teaching you how to co-sell like them. So what are those 7 things? These are the 7 things. Getting buy-in from your partner, using a partner ecosystem platform, bringing data in and out of that. We're going to share a bunch of examples about how that works. Establish a framework to identify the best overlaps, getting buy-in from your sales teams, which is yours and theirs, as well as removing all ambiguity. So for each of these, we're going to go one at a time. We're going to share the big picture about what we mean by these workflows, some tips for how to get there, and then if we have them, some examples from the field. Let's get started. Let's go. Number one, getting buy-in. And when we talk about getting buy-in, right, there's buy-in that you need to get with your team. There's buy-in you need to get with your partner, but also your team and their team, right? So it's not just you and them. It's all the people that surround you, all the supporting functions for each side of a co-selling relationship. We're kind of backing up to start here, which is we're starting with the people, right? We're not talking about workflows. We're not talking about tools yet. We're talking about people. You need a little bit of empathy here to get started co-selling, because at the end of the day, you're relying on other people to help you out, and the benefits of them may not always be clear.
So when we talk about buy-in, the first thing you'll probably think about is, what is a joint value proposition? How do I get my partner on board with developing an integration with me? But it's more than that. Co-selling means different things to different people. So you need to get on the same page about what co-selling means to you and your partner and what it should mean together as a partnership. So for example, in channel partnerships, maybe your channel partners are selling your product for you. In tech partnerships, maybe co-selling means that your partner is willing to introduce your sales reps to existing customers, or maybe it means that your sales reps will team up on joint calls to sell your joint solution. Put what co-selling means to both you and your partner for every partnership on paper. This will help set the expectations early and just make sure you're on the same page from the beginning. And when you're discussing this, you can write it out on paper as part of your agreement. You can put it into a timeline, mapping out all of the activities leading up to and after your integration launch, which includes sales enablement, how they communicate the value, how they sync up for meetings. So this can help you clarify some of the co-selling process, even a year in advance.
Right, codifying workflows is extremely important. And I think when people just start out, they have like a casual phone conversation or Zoom conversation. And then the many, many months the partnership takes to execute, people change, your counterpart may change. And if you have nothing to reference back, this is how confusion happens. This is how kind of entropy happens. And this is how co-selling partnerships kind of grind to a halt.
So when I talked about the timeline a second ago, one example of that is how Mike Stocker at RollWorks created a partnership maturity curve for every single tech partnership that he launches with a partner. So this timeline includes all of the activities that his team and his partner's team will be responsible leading up to their integration launch, during the day of launch, and following that. So again, this makes sure that all parties are accountable, and it just shows your partner what you expect from them months in advance. And it also gives you a timeline for revisiting the partnership so that you have something to fall back on in case your partner didn't deliver their end, or in case the partnership just isn't working. Another thing you can do is something that I like that Greg Unruh from Shipware does. He creates a term sheet. This is before the partnerships agreement, and it is different from that. So this is basically outlining the business goals that you have and the business goals that your partner has, and how you can reach those goals together and which stakeholders will be involved throughout the process. So this can help you identify which stakeholders will be involved from your partner's team. Do they have that executive level buy-in? Are the people that should be involved in this term sheet, are they on the calls about this term sheet? And it can help you identify red flags and just make sure that everything is aligned so that when you start your partnership and you start these co-selling motions, you don't have any issues.
Tip number 2, use a partner ecosystem platform. Now, Crossbeam is a partner ecosystem platform. There's many different options. Of course, we're going to recommend Crossbeam, and we have a bunch of examples that we're about to show that use Crossbeam as the example as well. What separates Supernodes from the rest of us mere mortals oftentimes is automation, the things that take days or weeks for the rest of us to do. Supernodes have a process and a tool that does it in hours or minutes. At a certain point, you can't vet and you can't map every partnership manually. You can't swap spreadsheets. You can't hire an intern to go over and do VLOOKUPs and to determine whether it's worth your time. And you may think you don't have the time to do this kind of vetting, especially when you're starting out, but when you don't vet partnerships properly, you're just compounding your problems down the road. So a way around this is to use a partner ecosystem platform like Crossbeam to automate your account mapping and determine if a partnership is worth your time. So an example of what this looks like in practice, this is a screen grab of the way account mapping looks in Crossbeam. I won't belabor the point here, but at the top, you'll see your prospects, opportunities, and customers. And on the left side, you'll see a list of your partners' list of prospects, opportunities, and customers. And software like Crossbeam will expose the opportunity that lies at the intersection of all these populations. So for example, if you put two partnerships in this matrix, you can see that one partnership could yield $500,000 worth of pipeline, and another one might yield 50. So you and your small team and your limited resources, you can focus on the 500.
Just as a couple of examples. So let's say you have prospects that overlap with your partner's prospects. This is an opportunity for your two sales reps to sync up on a call and sell your joint solution together. And then if you have prospects that overlap with your partner's customers, this is an opportunity to potentially ask for introductions into those customers from your partner. An example of a Supernode that's using a PEP, just one of many, is Vidyard. And they were able to 14 times their partner sourced revenue by using Crossbeam. So we mentioned buy-in a few slides ago, and we mentioned PEPs, and you'll notice that a bunch of these steps will start building on each other. So here's an example of a playbook that Gorgeous uses to talk about their PEP with their partners. This is them setting the table, showing their partners this is how they account map, and getting their partners up to speed on doing the same process. So this is a way to get buy-in from your partners, to get them adopting the tools that you're using, to get them understanding the use cases that you use for account mapping, and to get them thinking strategically about co-selling. And it will help you start to talk through the motions of co-selling and start to bring up any questions that could arise.
And notice how something like this combines the two tips, right? Getting buy-in, establishing a process, and automating your account mapping, right, is all in this PDF that Gorgeous provides their partners. So imagine how fast you can scale if you already have the buy-in and people already know what to do, and they get this every time they enter in a relationship with you. That's what Gorgeous does. That's one of the reasons they've been able to scale so quickly. There are lots of different inputs and data inputs you can use when account mapping. Generally, it shakes out like this, which is if you're an explorer, you're just getting started, you tend to use CSV files and spreadsheets. If you're a connector, which is that second level, you use something a little more dynamic like Google Sheets. But the people who are seriously growing their partner ecosystems, producers and Supernodes, connect their CRMs directly to their partner ecosystem platform. So as things change in the CRM, they're also reflected in real time in the account mapping matrix. So you know exactly the current up-to-date situation of how much a partner can offer you and how much you can offer a partner.
You can also share various fields from your CRM, like your sales reps' names and the status of the deal. So you know exactly which sales rep is tied to an account and which partners they could potentially pull in for help. An example of a company that brings relevant fields into their PEP is Sendoso. They bring Salesforce data in and they share the field negotiate and close, which tells them that the prospect is at the end of the sales cycle. So it's not worth the partner's time to come in and help. It's not worth the sales rep's time to reach out to the partner. So they do not use partners' influence for those deals.
And the way this kind of looks in Crossbeam, again, this is not all the data input you can have in Crossbeam. It's an example. You choose between Salesforce, HubSpot, Snowflake, or uploading a CSV, and that you can use as the basis of your account mapping. This is the expert level stuff. This is where Supernodes really shine. They not only automate the vetting of their partners via a PEP, they send the data from their partner ecosystem platform out into the tools they already use. So this is a relatively new concept. It's kind of advanced, but it's only getting easier.
So one thing that Supernodes do really well is that they enable partnerships to inform their entire business. Just as you're bringing Salesforce data into your PEP, for example, you can bring partner data into Salesforce. You can have that partner data visible in a widget in your sales rep's account dashboard so that they know exactly which partners they can bring in for a relevant deal. Your partner data is also really powerful in your data warehouse. From there, you can pull data into your entire tech stack and get better insights about attribution, customer success, retention, what stage a customer is at, and if it might be a good time to bring in an integration to their tech stack because of the stage of the customer lifecycle. Our investors at Redpoint bring data into their data warehouse and use reverse ETL tools to pull it out so their entire team can act on that data.
It's easy to talk about all this data moving back and forth, but let's reveal some actual examples, right? One thing that always gets us is when you talk about data moving, it's always like a bunch of pictures of databases and arrows, and that's not actually what it feels like to the end user. So let's talk about what this actually is in practice. Slack's a great example. So most partners, I imagine most of you have shared Slack channels with your partners. With the right PEP setup, you can make sure that your sales rep are notified in Slack every time there's a new co-selling opportunity. So this screenshot is a good example. There's a new overlap in your customer population versus their customer population, right? That means there's a new shared customer. With the right data workflow, your reps can automatically be notified that, hey, maybe they should co-sell that premium integration that expands the account. We talked about getting the right fields and the right data inputs in Crossbeam. This is why, right? When you have the real-time data going into something like Crossbeam and you have the right field shared, it empowers things like this.
We mentioned Gorgeous earlier, and I wanted to bring up another example from them. They created a Slack channel to invite their partner sales rep, and then their own partner manager and their sales rep into a shared channel. Anytime a new overlap is discovered, that overlap alerts that whole group in the channel, and then they can act on that data immediately. This and a handful of other tactics have helped Gorgeous increase their partner revenue by 30%.
Another thing that you could use it is sending your partner data back to the CRM, right? CRM into the PEP and the PEP back to the CRM. So if your reps are on any deal or any company, they can see if there's any possible partner influence that they can tap into to help close that deal. Or another one, this is an example of people sending data from Crossbeam into a data visualization tool like Tableau. So it's layering a bunch of different data sources to produce reports that enable reps to action the right deals in their pipeline, seeing which things have ecosystem influence, seeing which possible partners could help them out and meet quota faster. These are all things that are empowered if you get the right data into your PEP and then connect them with the tools you use every day. We're up to 5, moving here. Establish a framework to identify the best overlaps. So to think like a Supernode, you kind of have to rewind a little bit. You may be thinking scale, and you should. But first, start small. You got to work out the kinks and things. You got to find the most tightest, easiest to accomplish co-selling motion that you possibly can, and then expand from there. So a thing I'll ask you to think about is, what is your ideal partner? What is your ideal customer? What is your ideal co-selling motion, co-selling arrangement? If you don't know that, you have to figure that out before you start scaling like a Supernode.
Exactly. Not all overlaps are created equal. So hopefully you're mapping accounts with a bunch of different partners, and the overlaps that you have with one partner might overlap with another partner. How do you know which partners to reach out to, which partners have the most influence? Perhaps partner A has a long-standing relationship with the CEO of the prospect account, and they can make that introduction for you, give you context about the account, whereas partner B doesn't have that kind of relationship. So this is a kind of framework that we're talking about. Making a process for yourself to identify which of these accounts are strategic co-selling opportunities with a given partner. One example of a framework is by Freshworks, and Freshworks was able to increase their time to close by 50% for their sales reps through this framework. A 50% faster time to close compared to other channels, to clarify. This is a very simple visual of this framework, but I'll run you through it. So Freshworks maps their prospect accounts to their partner's customer accounts. Then their partner maps their own prospect accounts to Freshworks customer accounts. So now each party has a list of accounts that they could potentially introduce their partner into, but they don't send introductions right away because that's a lot of accounts, and they want to be strategic about their sales team's time and making sure that these are accounts that actually care about the integration. So each party or partner talks to their respective CS team and figures out which of these accounts does CS have the best relationship with, which of these accounts might be at the right time in the life cycle to adopt this particular integration, which one has the best use cases for the integration, which accounts exist in the industry that your partner cares about, or other factors like that. And they run through all of these factors and create a short list of those accounts. And then that short list is what they take to a meeting with their partner. Their partner brings a short list of their own. And then together with their sales reps and their partners, they talk about the joint value proposition. And then the sales reps go off and they make introductions same day into those accounts. So we'll share that framework in the chat, and we're also sharing another framework that is a little bit different, and it's another way to identify the most strategic accounts to co-sell with a given partner.
So again, right, we're not looking for the most partners, or the partners with the most overlaps. We're looking for the right partners with the right overlaps. One thing we've seen is many people who are partner leaders, their previous role was in sales. We see this when we survey the community. And in sales, depending on your role, oftentimes more is more. More is better. More pipeline is more opportunities to close deals. But when you transition to partnerships, you need the right partnerships. You need the right deals. Number 6 of 7, get buy-in from your sales teams. That S is there for a reason. So we are back to people, right? We started with buy-in. We're ending, or we're starting to close with the people side. This is about both of your sales team and your partner sales team. This is about empathy, and it's one of the trickier things to figure out, right? Left to their own devices, oftentimes your sales reps aren't going to participate in co-selling because it slows down from their normal day-to-day, their normal quota, their normal KPIs, their normal compensation plans, right? So you have to make it an incentive for everyone along the chain to be involved in co-selling. So it helps to make some changes in the way you do 2 things: in the way you talk about co-selling, that is the way you communicate it internally in your company, and the way you communicate it to your partner, as well as offering real incentives for them to co-sell versus doing any other sales motion.
The first thing I would recommend is putting the value of your integrations into the sales team's perspective. How can you communicate why this integration is important for them? How will this integration solve a pain point that your sales reps are experiencing during the sales cycle? How will this integration help them close more deals, and how will it help them reach their quota faster? So frame it in their perspective. Your OKRs are different from your sales team's OKRs. Think about how each of your goals translate to selling this integration. Another thing you can do is use financial incentives. So this could be used for your internal sales team or your external sales team, aka your partner sales team. Hatch uses a 2-tiered incentive for their partner sales team. So if their partner's sales rep passes a lead to them, they get 1 spiff. If the partner sales rep sticks with their internal sales rep through the sales cycle and brings that lead to close, then they get a 2nd spiff. So this incentivizes the rep to stay with your sales rep, support them throughout the whole sales cycle, give them context, give them support, join them on calls, do all of those good things. And by doing this, they were able to boost their close rate by 24% by offering the spiff to external sales reps. So we'll share that in the chat as well. Another thing you can consider doing is having your internal sales team score their counterparts. So by counterparts, I mean the partner sales reps that your internal sales reps are co-selling with. So this helps give your sales reps a voice in the process. They can come to you and say, listen, my partner sales rep is not reciprocating. They're not sending me leads. They're not supporting me on things that we are working on. And it can influence you to do a couple of things. A, you can rematch your sales rep with someone else who's more helpful or who's a better match or who has more relevant opportunities for them. B, or maybe a combination, is you revisit the partnership conversation with your partner and analyze, why isn't this working? Is the partnership not working in general and we should revisit this at a later date? Or is this a kind of sales enablement process that we should work on together for your sales team?
So one thing you may be hearing us talk about is speaking the sales team's language, and you think, I don't even know what that could possibly mean. We have a blog post for that. Actually, Olivia wrote it. It's a list of things and ways that partner people and partner leaders frame things to themselves and to one another versus the way to perhaps you should frame it to the sales team. So basically taking things you care about and translating it to the things that the sales team cares about. Now, we know that in partnerships, like sometimes things come down to like just soft power and convincing people to do things almost just socially. But every now and then you need actual hard incentives, financial incentives to get people to participate in the processes you're setting up. Number 7, remove ambiguity. So we talked a lot, there's a bunch of different tactics we've talked about. This is what makes it a workflow. So do a dry run of that like very refined co-selling motion, that ideal co-selling motion you have in your mind. And then think of all the people that have to be involved in that co-selling motion. And then ask yourself, do they have everything they need to operate and keep this moving? Supernodes are really good at removing ambiguity. They've seen all the pitfalls and they have a process for that. Chances are you haven't seen the pitfalls yet, but you can do a little mental modeling and figure out maybe some more predictable ones. Every single time someone in the chain has to stop and ask you or your counterpart at your partner, what do I do next? Who gets credit for this deal? Where do I send it? What am I allowed to do? Who am I allowed to talk to? It's just going to bog down the wheels of your co-selling motion. And then people are going to jump off and they're going to just participate in their normal selling motions. You need to make it as easy as possible by removing all ambiguity.
Exactly. So this is the now what. So you did all of this work so far. So now when you have that overlap, what happens? What does your entire team do? Let's go back to that Slack channel example. So if you create a shared Slack channel between your partner, yourself, and your respective sales teams, or a few evangelists on your sales teams, put some instructions in that Slack channel for the process. When a new overlap is found, how soon should your sales rep reach out to your partner sales rep and vice versa? What's expected of both sales reps? Do your sales reps have the questions they should be asking for these kinds of things? This is one of the questions on the slide there. Create alerts so that those overlaps happen, and then you get an alert in Slack instantly and your whole team can act on it. Put templates in the Slack channel, in an internal resource hub, or just Google Drive so that your sales team has copy they can use to reach out to that partner or to reach out to a customer that they're looking to introduce your partner into. Just make it easy for them and remove that ambiguity.
So remember, we talked about getting buy-in from your partners, codifying the ideal relationship, the ideal partnership. This is why, right? So when you set up these workflows, these things that your team needs, you know what they're in service to. But if you never get that foundation that we talked about in tip 1, this becomes a lot harder. So that gets us talking to the right order of operations here. We covered these 7 ways to co-sell like a supernode, and we threw a lot at you. We're trying to pack this as dense full as actionable things as we possibly can. You may be wondering, okay, that's a lot. I'm okay in some of these others I might need a few work. Where do I start? This is the rough order you should think about things, right? If I could screenshot one slide in this entire presentation, it'd be this one, because if you are wondering where to go next, this is how you should attack things, right? First, you should focus on the people, the buy-in, getting people to believe in the partnership and the ecosystem that you are building. Then enable them to help you out, and then tell them what to do when certain things happen, right? Remove ambiguity. And then, and only then, can you automate? And this is where we see ecosystems really take off, right? If you automate a bad process or you automate something that no one believes in, you're just going to scale up a bad ecosystem. And it's going to just get harder and harder. And it's going to, like, the wheels are going to come to a halt and you have to start all over, right? Build a proper foundation from the start.
So we often hear that co-selling is one of the biggest challenges for partnership professionals. And it makes sense because look at all of the steps we just covered and all of the people involved, and every partner is different. So there's a lot that you have to do to perfect those co-selling motions. If you're struggling with co-selling in your partner program, look at these 4 buckets, figure out what am I doing well, what am I not doing well. You should also look at these buckets from the perspective of each of your partners. It's not uncommon for someone to ask their partner, what's your co-selling process? And them to say, we don't really have a process, or we don't really know right now. How can you support getting them up to speed? Maybe they can adopt the process that you're using or vice versa. So this is another way just to clarify that buy-in early and figure out where you can support your partner, where your partner can support you, and identify where each of you can level up your maturity.
So this is what we covered, the 7 ways. We covered maybe the order of operations right here. We're going to leave you with how to level up, right? So again, no one person has all these things covered. We've yet to find them. And if that's you, please reach out. We want to write about you. But no one person has all these things covered. So there's always room for improvement. We have a blog post on our website that takes your maturity level and offers common ways to get to the next level, right? So if you haven't already, take the maturity diagnostic, maturity.crossbeam.com, figure out where you slot in, and then we'll offer, and right at the screen after you take the diagnostic, custom next steps for how to level up. So as an example, right, this is how to get to level 1, level 2, from level 2 to level 3, level 3 to level 4.
So as a quick example, if you're at the connector level, which is the 3rd level of tech ecosystem maturity, and you're trying to advance to Supernode, one of the things you can do, in addition to everything else we just talked about, is you can consider offering a quota relief to your internal sales reps to support your partners in closing deals. Supernodes know that the success of their partners is their own success too. If their partners are making revenue, then they are too. So this is a great way to not only incentivize your sales reps to get bought into partnerships, but to get them bought into helping your partners without any pause.
That is how to co-sell like a supernode. We running out of time. We're 5 minutes over for Q&A. So if you have any questions, please email us at insights@crossbeam.com. You can reply us at Crossbeam on Twitter or on LinkedIn. We check all that stuff. We keep an eye on it. If we could pull a particular resource for you that would be helpful, a particular problem, email us. Chances are we have something that could be helpful. Just look at all the links that Hannah put in the chat. But otherwise, take the diagnostic, get a feel for where you stand, and then that'll help surface the right Crossbeam insights and resources for you. But really appreciate you spending this 35 minutes with Olivia and I, and we hope you guys have a nice week. Bye.
Thank you all.